This morning, how does Houston get out of the financial hole that it's in? Layoffs, tax increases, new fees? The city controller, Chris Hollins, lays out the financial problems facing the state's largest city. The race for Dallas County Sheriff, incumbent Marion Brown versus Lupe Valdez.
You hired Marion Brown. Did you ever think you'd be running against her?
No, I never thought that.
New developments after the indictment of South Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar. Politically, how can he survive this? And a rare interview with the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations.
What keeps you up at night?
Wow, that's
Linda Thomas Greenfield on the demands of diplomacy and how she navigates the world's most complicated crises.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Jason Whiteley. Let's start the program here with the latest political headlines happening across our state right now. House Speaker Dade Phelan isn't sure if he will return to the legislature, but he still gave lawmakers some homework to do. Phelan gave his list of what's called the interim charges, issues for them to research before lawmakers return in January. Phelan wants them to figure out how to further reduce property taxes and to consider options for school vouchers. Similar tasks to what Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick asked senators to study. Legal problems are growing for South Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar from Laredo, indicted for accepting $600,000 in bribes. Two political consultants have now taken plea deals and are working with federal prosecutors. Cuellar, who's a South Texas Democrat, denies the charges. What's interesting here, though, is that no Texans in Congress have called on Cuellar to resign his seat. And for the first time in decades, District 15 in the Texas Senate is going to have a new representative sitting in that seat. Molly Cook defeated State Rep Jarvis Johnson to win the runoff. She's an emergency room nurse in Houston. It is notable because Ms. Cook was double digits behind Jarvis Johnson in the first election. Molly Cook, though, now replaces John Whitmire in the Texas Senate after he was elected Houston mayor. You know, as mayor, John Whitmire says Houston is broke. On Wednesday, he will propose a new budget for the city, asking for cuts from every department except for police and except for fire. The question is, though, will those cuts be enough? Our first guest knows the numbers. Chris Hollins is Houston's chief financial officer, and he joined us from his office at City Hall. Hey, Chris, good to see you again, man. You recently projected a budget shortfall for the city of Houston, $230 to $280 million. The new fiscal year starts July 1st. Is this going to be able to be made up by then, do you think?
Well, hey, Jason, first of all, great to be here with you as always. But yeah, look, the city of Houston has some pretty serious financial challenges. What my office is projecting is that with the status quo right now, we have a structural deficit. And that means that on a recurrent basis, we have more money going out than is coming in. And that's to the tune of $160 to $200 million. In addition to that, we're in the middle of settlement negotiations with our fire union that, if the current terms go forward, are going to tack on $70 to $80 million a year to that challenge. And so, yeah, your numbers are right. $230 to $280 million is what's going on in the status quo once the fire settlement is added in. And we got to figure out how we're going to pay for it. Now, the good thing is that the city of Houston has a record fund balance. We have more cash on hand than essentially we've ever had before.
Is that like a savings account? Is that what that is?
Exactly. It functions like a savings account, and it's largely the result of ARPA money and other COVID-related federal funding that has come in. But just because you have a big savings account doesn't mean that you can consistently spend more than is coming in, because then that savings account is going to dwindle pretty quickly.
We spoke to Mayor Whitmire a few months ago, and he said that the city of Houston has had a budget shortfall for years, and the way they always make up for it is by selling land. But at some point, you're going to run out of land to sell, right?
Exactly. And as our city's financial watchdog, that's the story that we're sharing. These one-time fixes that we've used in the past, we're running out of those options. And so we have to get on the path to fiscal sustainability to truly, on a year-over-year basis, know what's coming in, and then what we're spending be aligned with that. And it's been out of whack for some time now.
You mentioned the hard choices that the city council is going to face. Of course, that's not your office facing those. You lay out the numbers and let council decide and the mayor decide what to do. What's most likely?
What's most likely is that they're going to pursue some efficiency measures. But when you think about this, so much of our general fund budget is simply paying people to do their jobs, right? And I don't believe that layoffs are imminent. We need more people to be doing more work, as I've mentioned earlier in this conversation. But I do see that there are probably going to be some slight budget cuts to some city departments, but I think it's going to have to be coupled with some revenue options. And the mayor has discussed a tax increase. The mayor has discussed tacking on garbage fees, which up in North Texas is pretty common in your major cities. The mayor has represented potentially charging our water utility for some sort of right of way, which I believe is an option that San Antonio has pursued. And so it's looking out at this set of options and understanding how much we're going to get for each one. And then they have to decide what they believe is most prudent and in the benefit of Houstonians.
Chris, a lot of work ahead of you, man. I always appreciate the time. Good to see you.
That's what we're here to do. I look forward to coming back on and sharing information anytime.
All right, let's bring in the roundtable to talk about the politics of this. And oh my, is it mired in politics? Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I am Mitra Withers from the Texas Tribune. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Bud, this is a job John Whitmire wanted.
Well, he has to come in. This is a terrible time to walk into city government in general. The COVID money is gone. All the cities are facing these budget crises. Houston really isn't that bad off. Look at this giant fund balance they have. They have some money to pay off the fire and police. So, but he does have to come in and cut some departments. Oh my goodness, we have to cut a little bit.
And cuts are always tough though, Ian. I mean, despite who it is or what city it is or what budget it is.
That's right. Cuts are always tough. And, you never want to hear about services being cut because you want to make sure you're promoting the quality of life of being in a city like Houston, too. So it's a tough balance for Mayor Whitmire. You're also looking at, potential raises coming up for municipal employees in the future, too. That's being negotiated. So, it's not an easy time, but you want to make sure your message with this is that you're maintaining or improving the quality of life in Houston.
And Bernadine, John Whitmire has always enjoyed a lot of popularity in Houston for decades. How is he going to fare politically as he navigates this?
Well, that's a good question, because one thing, when you start increasing fees, when you start laying off employees, when you start cutting services, that's impacting voters. And those are the main people who he's going to need to win re-election. So it's going to be interesting because he's coming from being a policymaker as a state senator, and now he has to make some tough decisions that local officials have to make.
At least there's a lot of time until that next election, Bud.
Jason, Houston may have more potholes in streets. There may be more dead grass in parks. But the Mayor Whitmire is going to participate in the time-honored tradition of blaming your predecessor.
And that gets old.
What'd you say, Bernadine?
That'll get old.
That will get old. At least there is a lot of time, though.
And it can only last a certain amount of time.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, after a while, it's not going to go too far, I guess.
Yes.
A lot more coming up here on the program, including this.
When we come back here, Lupe Valdez on why Dallas Democrats should make her sheriff again. Plus, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations has a message for college protesters. Inside Texas Politics, back in just a moment.
Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. The race for Dallas County Sheriff is one to watch in the May 28th runoff. It's the former sheriff, Lupe Valdez, versus the incumbent sheriff, Marion Brown. We tried for 2 weeks to speak to Sheriff Brown, but she was not available. Lupe Valdez, though, did agree to take our questions about why she is campaigning against Brown after originally hiring her.
Sheriff, good to see you again here.
Thank you, Jason.
Basic question, why do you want your old job back? You've been there and done that, right?
Yes, and honestly, I really dislike it when they say you want your old job back. I can do several things. There's a lot that I can do. I'm not a one-talent person. There's a lot I can do. But there's a lot of issues going on that need to be corrected. And they've been going on for 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. A lot of the excuse is COVID. COVID's been over for almost 4 years now. We need to move on. We need to fix these things and move on.
At the end of the day, how would you tell voters in Dallas County that you are most different from your challenger? Because both of you have experience being sheriff.
Mm-hmm. Let me just say it with one program. and I had maybe 47 programs. We started a program to provide job skills to the inmates. You pick the ones that you think are going to be successful. You're not going to spend all this money on people you know are just going to keep returning to jail. And there's a lot of them that it's the first or the second time, and you need to help those. So we started job skills program, welding, machinist, bicycle repair, commercial printing, dog obedience training. So these folks had a degree from a community college when they got out so they could go find a job. Large percentage of them found a job. Those programs don't exist anymore. The $4 million that were used for those programs are put into something else that the county is responsible for. I think that's not only mismanagement, it's not taking care of the people that you need to change from tax users to taxpayers.
You hired Marion Brown. Did you ever think you'd be running against her?
No, I never thought that. I wanted her to be successful. I wanted her to do well. And it hasn't worked out that way. So we need to make a change.
You're the underdog in this runoff. How confident are you that you can win?
How many times have I not been the underdog? I think the majority of my life I've been an underdog. I was the 8th child of migrant workers that nobody had an education. And I have been an underdog consistently.
Sure.
So I'm not afraid of being the underdog.
Sheriff, thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Now to a rare interview with an international figure. Linda Thomas Greenfield might not be a household name, but as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, she is in the middle of the most complicated crises in the world: Ukraine, Taiwan, and the Israel-Hamas war, just to name a few. The ambassador stopped by our studios during a short visit to Dallas the other day. Madam Ambassador, good to see you. Thank you for coming by the station here.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be in Dallas.
Well, we appreciate you being here in Texas. I want to ask about the college protests. You faced some criticism from college protesters. What's your message to them as you watch these happen all across the country?
Look, I have been clear that we hear them, and I want them to know that we hear them. I spent a part of my life when I was on that side of protest, and I ask myself now that I'm on this side, what would I want to hear from me? And what I want to hear is that I'm being heard, and I want the students to know that they are being heard. At the same time, we have to be clear that they can't use violence as a means of getting their message across. Demonstrations are a part of our history, and that is something we all support. Violent demonstrations are another story.
You're also in Dallas to give an introduction to former President George W. Bush.
I'm delighted to have been asked to do that.
Well, you worked for President Biden, but you said that George W. Bush made an impact on your career. Can you tell me about the first time you met him?
I was the Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Bureau for Africa, handling Liberia. And the president of Liberia was coming for a meeting with the president, first woman elected on the continent of Africa. And Condi Rice invited me to come in to brief the president. And I was nervous, I was excited. And when I walked in the door, he saluted, and I was just, it was a pinchable moment, as I say. And I have worked with him since, and he has been an extraordinary person. He nominated me to be ambassador to Liberia. He visited Liberia and other parts of Africa several times, both when he was president and since he left the presidency. So he's revered on the continent.
What keeps you up at night?
Wow, that's it's the next crisis. It's a tough question. I'm already awake at night because of current crises, but we don't know where the next one will be. We don't know when the next natural disaster is going to occur and where it's going to occur. So I have a lot of sleepless nights, and I have a lot of very, very active days.
Out of curiosity, how do you unwind with the world seemingly on your shoulders and trying to keep the peace?
You know, that's a great question as well. I love to cook. And when I was Assistant Secretary for Africa, I told everyone I would come home at 10 o'clock at night and put on a pot of red beans, and they take 2 hours to cook. And everybody's like, you put on red beans at 10 o'clock at night? And I'm like chopping onions really relaxes me. And I'll take them to work the next day. You know, I talk about gumbo diplomacy. So cooking relaxes me, and it really gives me a sense of being normal.
Madam Ambassador, we appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
The Roundtable is ready when we return here at Inside Texas Politics. Don't forget to keep up with Texas politics during the week. You can subscribe to our podcast. It's called Y'all-itics. New content, fresh interviews. Episodes drop every Sunday morning, wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Bud, Ian, and Bernadine all back with us. And let's start down in Laredo with the news about Congressman Henry Cuellar. Bud, indicted for allegedly accepting bribes. This had been rumored for a long time. We've all heard rumors about this. It's finally happened. Now he denies it. This is an election year. We're, 6 months out? How does he survive this politically, Bud?
You know, he's so enormously popular in his district and has been, survived challenges. And, you know, nobody else seems to want to touch it or criticize him. I mean, I think that he is so popular in Congress, his fellow members of Congress aren't after him. I don't think, Jay Furman comes from this military background that appeals in the San Antonio part of the district. But whoever comes out of that runoff, whether it's Furman or Lázaro Garza, I don't know if they'll be able to overcome Cuellar's advantage.
Well, that's a good point, Ian, and you guys report this in the Texas Tribune, how no one else in Congress is coming out and asking for his resignation.
Congressman Cuellar has been in office in Congress since 2005. He is known as, one of the Democrats who works really well across the aisle with Republicans. He's also got a seat on the powerful House Appropriations Committee. These are reasons why, people are not going to be quick to condemn here, even though they may have with other people like former Representative Santos and Senator Menendez. People are treading lightly here when it comes to Congressman Cuellar.
Yeah, indeed so. And his popularity is huge in his district, which runs from Laredo. They're up towards San Antonio. The question, though, is, Bernadine, how much does this affect his campaign? He will have to go to court like Donald Trump is doing, which means he can't be on the campaign trail.
Well, he can't be, but everyone has talked about how popular he is, and I think that translates into his district as well, because what he has done is what most successful politicians need to do, and that's develop relationships, not only in his district, but in Congress as well. And so it remains to be seen, and keep in mind that some of his voters and constituents would look at that as being, they're messing with him, exactly what they say about
Donald Trump.
But also it could cause this sympathy vote and this sympathy thinking. So go ahead.
But we also have to remember too, Bernadine, as you were mentioning that, we've also got a political consultant and his former campaign manager now reaching plea deals too. That's going to certainly doesn't bode well for Cuellar as this continues.
That's true, but look at Trump. Trump is still going.
Well, it's all going to be about Trump. It's going to be whether Trump musters more support in South Texas or whether Joe Biden carries that district.
But can Cuellar win, though, with this hanging over him?
I think so.
Yes.
He can win re-election?
Yes.
Let's talk about the education department, the U.S. Education Department, Bud. It says transgender students are now protected under civil rights laws. Governor Abbott instructing folks in the state to ignore that. It's culture war, clearly, but how is this a winning argument here?
Well, it's a winning argument within the Republican Party because there is this philosophical clash that we see in court every day of, is evangelism by religious conservatives considered harassment, particularly of transgender students? It's this battle between religious free speech and civil rights. And so to say that all the transgender students in schools have civil rights, that nobody can harass them, will impede people who want to evangelize. I think that Greg Abbott is playing to his party.
And clearly he is playing to his party. Ian, would the federal government ever actually punish school districts, though?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Also another battle on this front too is coming from the AG's office. Ken Paxton has sued on this as well, so it's definitely first and foremost. And it's the question is on their end is also about the limits of President Biden's constitutional authority on this in regards to how he's addressing Title IX. So that'll be again a question that's going to have to be solved out in the courts.
Yeah, and this is kind of the Republican playbook. Let's go to court and fight it out about this one too.
They love going to court. But also, it sort of reflects on double standards because the Republicans, particularly with the protests where the governor is saying and the presidents of these universities are getting support because they said the students must follow policies. The students must do what the institutions have in place of policies or whatever. But what Abbott is saying is don't pay any attention to that. Don't pay any attention to what the president wants you to do, which is his right to do. So to me, it seems a double standard, but that's what Texas likes to do, go to court.
But I guess getting back to the first question, why would Texas fight against LGBTQ rights?
Well, they're arguing that this affects athletics, but the regulations specifically say there's nothing in here about athletics, although they do talk about equality.
Yeah.
I think you can still discriminate in sports like boxing and wrestling, things where there's a physical advantage involved, but not in things like we saw in Sherman, where can somebody be in a play?
A lot more to be hashed out in court, and this is just one of many cases that Republicans will be fighting. Guys, thanks so much. We appreciate that. Always appreciate you watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics and hope you can join us then. Take care.